BTS News Today. The atmosphere in the room was so quiet before it was finally broken by Taehyung's melodious voice that began to sing. No one expected that night would be such a shocking moment, especially for Jungkook. During this time, the interaction of the two is always filled with jokes, laughter, and warmth that is so natural. But this time there was something different, something that left Jungkook speechless. When the stage was dimly lit, Taehyung stood in the middle, holding the microphone tightly. He stared at Jungkook, who was sitting nearby, and in an instant, a familiar melody came from his lips. The song he sang was not an ordinary song, but a song that had a deep meaning for both of them. From the very beginning of the first notes sounded, the atmosphere of the room changed dramatically. No more chatter, no more laughter, just a silence full of anticipation that binds everyone. Jungkook, who is usually expressive and full of energy, can now only look at Taehyung with teary eyes. He knew exactly the song, knew every lyric, and more than that, he knew why Taehyung chose to sing it that night. Amidst the calm that enveloped the room, every word sung by Taehyung felt so deep, as if carrying a message that only Jungkook could understand. Old memories begin to pop into Jungkook's mind as he hears Taehyung's soft voice sing those emotional lyrics. This song is not just a song, but a symbol of the long journey they have gone through together. From the early days as a trainee to the present day, they have been through so many things: laughter, tears, struggles, and victories. However, there was something different in the way Taehyung sang the song this time. His voice sounded more emotional, almost like someone was delivering a final message. Jungkook's eyes widened when he realized that Taehyung really performed the song with a lot of feeling. The tones that used to sound familiar now feel so touching, as if every word carries the weight of inexpressible emotions. Jungkook was not even aware that his hands began to clench tightly over his lap. He wanted to say something, wanted to react, but his voice seemed to be stuck in the throat. The other members who witnessed the moment also got carried away. They exchanged glances, as if realizing that something bigger was happening between the two. Jimin, who was sitting near Jungkook, stared intently. Namjoon nodded slowly, as if understanding the hidden meaning behind Taehyung's appearance. As the song reaches its climax, Taehyung's voice shakes slightly. He closed his eyes for a moment before finally reopening, looking straight at Jungkook. In that moment, something was revealed, something that needed no words to be understood. It was a pent-up, sincere feeling all along, an honesty that can only be expressed through music. Jungkook felt his chest tightness. He didn't know how to react. Every word he said was not enough to describe how he felt right now. When the song ends and the last voice of Taehyung disappears in the air, silence again enveloped the room. Everyone was waiting for a reaction from Jungkook, but he was still speechless, still trying to digest what had just happened. However, unexpectedly, Taehyung only smiled slightly and then turned around without saying a word. He stepped away, leaving Jungkook still stuck in place, leaving everyone in confusion. Jungkook stared at Taehyung's back as he slowly moved away, and for the first time in a long time, he was completely at a loss for words. The room was still in heavy silence after Taehyung finished singing the song. No one talks, no one moves. It was as if everyone was trapped in the feeling that had just been created by such a melodious voice and such strong emotions. Jungkook sat in his place, his eyes still fixed on Taehyung's figure slowly moving away. There was something different in the way Taehyung left the stage this time. Usually, after singing, he would laugh or throw jokes to break the atmosphere, but not this time. He only smiled lightly before turning around and leaving Jungkook with a lot of questions spinning in his head. Jungkook tries to understand what really just happened. He knew very well the meaning of the song Taehyung sang, but why did Taehyung choose that song? Why did he sing it with such a deep and emotional expression? And what bothered him the most? Why did Taehyung leave without saying a word? Jungkook's heart was beating faster than usual. Over the years they have been together, they have gone through so much. But this was the first time Taehyung had made her feel completely helpless with just a song. Something feels so close yet so far away. Jimin, who was sitting next to Jungkook, finally broke the silence with a soft voice. "You okay?" he asked, looking at Jungkook attentively. Jungkook turned to Jimin, but didn't answer right away. His lips were slightly open, as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. He only shook his head slowly before finally turning his gaze back towards the door where Taeyong had disappeared. Jimin seemed to understand that Jungkook needed time to process everything, so he didn't press further. However, from the expression on his face, it was clear that he was also shocked by what had just happened. Meanwhile, the other members also started talking to each other in a low voice, trying to interpret the moment they just witnessed. RM looked pensive, perhaps thinking of the meaning behind Taeyong's actions, while Suga only let out a long sigh before sipping his coffee calmly. Jungkook, on the other hand, felt himself getting more and more agitated. He knew he couldn't just shut up. He must find out what really happened to Taeyong. Without thinking, Jungkook got up from his seat and walked quickly towards the door. He didn't care about the gazes of the other members who seemed to be watching him. All he had in mind was one thing. He had to see Taeyong. When he came out of the room, he found a fairly quiet hallway. No sign of Taeyong. Jungkook sighed deeply and began to walk faster, go through several rooms in the hope of finding his best friend. However, when he gets to the balcony where Taeyong used to spend time alone, he instead found the man already standing there. Turn your back on him. Views of the city stretched out in front of them. The lights sparkled like stars on earth. The night wind blew slowly, shaking Taeyong's flowing hair. Jungkook paused for a moment, hesitating whether he should say hello right away or wait for Taeyong to notice his presence. However, before he could make up his mind, Taeyong had already spoken without turning his head. "You came." Her voice sounded soft, but there was something different, an exhaustion hidden behind her tone. Jungkook stepped closer, stood next to Taeyong, and gazed at the view of the city in front of them. "What just happened?" Jungkook asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Why are you singing that song? Why did you just leave?" Taeyong let out a long sigh before finally turning his head and looking at Jungkook. Their eyes met, and in an instant, Jungkook could see something in Taeyong's eyes, an emotion that was hard to put into words. "I just want to say something," Taeyong said quietly, "but I don't know how to say it." Jungkook frowned, trying to digest Taeyong's words. His heart was beating faster. There was something in Taeyong's voice that made him feel anxious. "What do you mean?" asked Jungkook in a quieter voice, as if fearing the answer he would hear would change everything. Taeyong stared at Jungkook deeply before turning his eyes back to the view of the city before them. The twinkling lights looked like stars falling to earth, creating a scene that is so beautiful yet feels so far away, so hard to reach. "The song." Taeyong finally spoke, his voice trembling slightly. "It's not an ordinary song for me. It's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time, but I never had the courage to say it directly." Jungkook tries to understand Taeyong's intentions. He recalled the lyrics of the song Taeyong had just sung, find the hidden meaning in it. "Then why did you just leave?" Jungkook asked. This time his voice sounded sharper. "You're confusing me, Taeyong. You sing that song with emotion, as if something is important, then you left without saying anything. I don't understand." Taeyong closed his eyes for a moment, sighed before finally looking at Jungkook again. "I'm afraid," he said softly. Jungkook is getting confused. "Scared? Afraid of what?" Taeyong smiled a little, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm afraid of your reaction. I'm afraid if I say it directly, everything will change. I'm afraid if I'm honest, I'm going to lose you." Jungkook felt his chest tightness. "What are you missing, Taeyong?" Taeyong laughed a little, but there was a poignancy behind the laughter.